I think Daniel himself would admit that these are versions, not translations of Hafez. And when you listen and really look at the wonderful work that Farishte Azad is doing, who we heard just a couple of weeks ago, and you compare this poetry, you can really see that there is no comparison. They're not in the same book, much less on the same page. So just acknowledging that he's just used a few words here and there from Hafez and then really run with them. He could have easily just said, this is my own poetry, and that would have been a 100% valid thing for him to say, because it really is his own poetry, I think. And so Hafez scholars would agree with that. And I don't think it makes his work any less valid, because I think his work is just outrageously brilliant. So it's why I wanted to highlight him today. I just think he's one of the most gifted poets I know, and really in a category of his own. And most people aren't interested in if translations are authentic or not. You know, that's really left to the scholars in general, unless you're a Middle Eastern person, and because Hafez is so important to them. So, so therefore, Daniel Ladinsky's versions of Hafez have been translated into several languages, like probably 10 or 15 languages. So the Hafez translations that people would be reading in several countries today are actually Daniel Ladinsky's versions of Hafez. So does anybody have any comments before we go on?
No, that's very interesting, though. Thank you for.
Okay, so I know this is going to be recorded, and maybe I'll ask that it be edited out.
I'll leave the stuff we talked about beforehand off the conversation. We can talk about it after the
So my question is, because I'm a novice to this poetry landscape, you're saying that he would read and interpret somebody else's translation of Hafiz and then create a different, like his own version?
Yes.
Why?
I think there's a lot of theories around that, but I think maybe one of the theories is that sometimes when you sense that fame is hovering over you, that might be very scary. And so if you use someone else's name, you don't then have to really step into the light the way you might have to. And Daniel Ladinsky is a serious recluse, super introverted recluse, and prefers to keep it that way. So I suspect it was really his higher self or his inner self just saying, I have a gift to bring to the world. I want to bring it. I'd rather bring it cloaked as someone else. That's my theory.
Doesn't Coleman Barks technically also give renderings rather than anything like close translations of Rumi? So
this is what I understand, and I've done a lot of research about it, but I have not spoken to a Farsi scholar. My understanding is that he was sent over to Afghanistan and several other Middle Eastern countries to read his work, read his translations, to Farsi scholars, and they very much accepted his work. And he's got a PhD. PhDs in English are typically not going to sign their name to something that is not accurate. They're just not usually going to do that. It would be, it would not bode well for the university that they work for. I mean, those are the kind of things you could get fired for, frankly. Mm-hmm. And he was never fired from the University of Georgia. And in fact, Robert Bly, who is a, world-renowned translator and poet, was the person who really put Rumi into Coleman Barks' hands. And I doubt he would have done that if he thought Coleman Barks was going to pretend with Rumi rather than be really faithful to Rumi. So my understanding is that is not true at all. If you find out from some valid sources, otherwise, please let me know. But everybody I know who really cares about translations thinks very highly of Coleman Barks. So.
Yeah, that's my impression too. But I think, I guess I still felt like he wasn't doing a literal translation by any means of Rumi, but he was definitely working with others or one other person to be a pretty accurate sense of the meaning of what.
Yeah. I'm not sure you can do a word for word translation in poetry. I just don't think it can be done. And I don't think it would be a good idea to do it. I remember when I was learning German in Germany, I used Goethe's poetry, as I had a book of Goethe's poetry. And so the poem was in English on one page and it was German on the other page. And I would come up with these crazy words that people would say, how did you learn the word doppelganger? You know, I'd say, oh, I read Goethe, and I would read it to them. And a half-hour conversation would ensue among the German people in the room about, was that the proper translation of a particular word? You know, I thought, wow, that's a lot of conversation about 2 or 3 words in a Goethe quote, not even a book of Goethe, but like a page of Goethe. So it really helped me to understand how difficult it is to translate poetry, because every word is really, you know, pretty specifically chosen, I think, by poets. And when you I remember someone published one of my poems and they edited my poem. And I saw the poem edited in a publication, and I was so horrified. I was so aghast that I just called them and said, you cannot do this. They had no clue. I mean, they just were like, what, really? They thought they were, editing prose, which you might edit a prose piece, but you would never edit someone's poem. You just would never do that.
No.
So I think poetry kind of falls into its own category for that reason. But my understanding is he took that very seriously because he was in the academic world. And it's considered kind of heresy to, play around with that past a certain point.
Yeah. I know what you're saying exactly. The language problem,
Yes.
I mean, even if you are fluent in both languages that you're exchanging, that problem is still there.
Yes, I think so. Had I known the conversation was going to go in this direction, I would have brought you 3 translations of a particular Rumi or a particular Hafez poem, so y'all could see the drastic difference between translations. If you go and look up Wilberforce Clark's translations, for example, of Hafez, and you compare them to even Ferishteh's, you would find in a poem that has 40 words in it, you would find 10 words that were different. That's a quarter of the poem.
Yeah, I'm having that problem right now, working on collecting all the different translations that I have of the Gujarati Arti into English.
Right, that's a perfect example. Oh yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, well, I don't want to talk about it at length because I thought we ought to go ahead and get on to Hafez, but it's wildly different. And my favorite rendition that I've read so far is the one that Erich did. And yet it's the one that's the furthest off from the old traditional sort of translation. But it's, I mean, I don't have the papers here in front of me, so I can't give you an example, but
right.
that's a problem,
Right.
And of course, Erich is completely fluent in English, British
right.
English, no less,
right.
And,
yeah.
But his interpretation was much freer. And then the standard, formal prayer.
Right.
That it is. So.
Yeah. I think of prayer and poetry in sort of the same sentence. I think of them so similarly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm quite affected by the nuance. Well, my favorite Hafez book is this one, The Gift. I know most of you have probably got, if you haven't at least read it. And this is really the book that put Daniel Ladinsky on the map. He had already published 2 other books before this. One of them was published by Sufism Reoriented.
Mm.
And then this was published by Penguin. And Daniel Ladinsky's translations have sold so well that he's now got perennial status, classic status with Penguin, which is like 5% of their authors get that status. And it just means these books have perennially sold every year consistently. They sell at a very high number and then have been translated into several languages. So it's a big honor and gives you some sense of the scope of the interest in his work.
Mm.
He has gone on to have a book published called East-West Poets. It's a wonderful book about 7 different poets. That is a very interesting thing to look at because you can really see his voice when you compare, somebody like Teresa of Avila to St. Francis of Assisi. Suddenly you see that the voices sound exactly the same, and that gives you a sense of how strong his voice is in this translation, but they are lovely. Mm-hmm. And 7 poets from the East, 7 poets from the West. And then he's also gone on to do a book of Rumi with his agent, who's a Baba lover, Nancy Barton. And then he went on to publish a book about dogs called Darling, I Love You. And when I heard that, I sort of rolled my eyes, but no, that book is fantastic. It is absolutely incredible.
It's a great subject.
It's a book of dog poetry.
Well, you know how people love their dogs.
Yes. But he somehow makes it like this very spiritual thing. It just really, like when I read that book, I was like, okay, I will no longer argue in my mind about the genius of Daniel Ladinsky. Right here in front of me.
Well, very interesting.
Yeah. Hey, Tina. Glad you're here. So does anyone have some of Daniel's work that they would like to read? If not, I'll dive in, but I'd like to make room for anyone who brought their favorites. No? Okay. I'll jump in.
Jump in.
I basically couldn't find a bad poem. I just really have to say that. I just, it's like I kept flipping through going, oh, there must be a poem here I really don't like. No, there was not one.
Should we all mute ourselves so that we don't?
Sure, yeah, but feel free to raise your hand if you would like to make a comment or ask a question. I really love the conversations that we have around poetry. I think they're very, very great.
And what is the book you have?
Oh, it's called The Gift.
The Gift, okay. I don't think I have that one. I have The Subject Tonight is Love and I Heard God Laughing.
Yes, those are the first 2 before this one.
Okay.
Yay, Dinah's got it. Highly recommend. So this one is called Like a Life-Giving Sun. You could become a great horseman and help to free yourself and this world, but only if you in prayer become sweet lovers. It is a naive man who thinks we are not engaged in a fierce battle. For I see and hear brave foot soldiers all around me going mad, falling on the ground in excruciating pain. You could become a victorious horseman and carry your heart through this world like a life-giving sun, but only if you and God become sweet lovers. This one's called Effacement.
What was the number of that one that you just read?
The one I just read, I just pulled the piece out. It's on page 73.
So, okay, that's what I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah. This one's on page 75. Effacement is a golden gun. It was not easy to hold it against my head and fire. I needed great faith in my master to suffocate myself with this holy bag full of truth. I needed great courage to go out into the dark, tracking God into the unknown, and not panic or get lost in all the startling new scents, sounds, and sights, or lose my temper, tripping in those scheming night and day around me. Hafez, effacement is the emerald dagger you need to plunge deep into yourself upon this path to divine recovery, upon this path to God.
Mm.
So true, right?
Mm.
Will you again give page numbers before you?
Yes, I will. That was page 75. And this one is page 77. As you can see, I didn't have to flip the pages very far before I was like, I have to put that one in there. This one's called The Vintage Man. And as an artist, I have thought about this poem a lot. The difference between a good artist and a great one is the novice will often lay down his tool or brush, then pick up an invisible club on the mind's table and helplessly smash the easels and jade. Whereas the vintage man no longer hurts himself or anyone and keeps on sculpting light.
Mm. Oh, wow.
I know, right? Page 77.
Can you repeat that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
The difference between a good artist and a great one is the novice will often lay down his tool or brush, then pick up an invisible club on the mind's table and helplessly smash the easels and jade. Whereas the vintage man no longer hurts himself or anyone and keeps on sculpting light.
Okay, that's page 77.
77.
Okay, I have a friend who sculpts with light.
Oh.
This is blowing my mind. I've got to send him that.
Yeah, I thought you have to send it over.
Yes. That might be good. And what's the title again? I'm sorry, I forgot it.
The Vintage Man.
The Vintage Man, right. Okay.
This is the title poem from the book. It's just so fabulous. His poems are so short. It's amazing that someone can fit so many thoughts into such a short poem. This one's called The Gift. It's on page 83. But I'm telling you, once you get the book, like you're going to mark every page. Our union is like this. You feel cold, so I reach for a blanket to cover our shivering feet. A hunger comes into your body, so I run to my garden and start digging potatoes. You ask for a few words of comfort and guidance. I quickly kneel at your side, offering you this whole book as a gift. You ache with loneliness one night, so much you weep. And I say, here's a rope, tie it around me. Hafez will be your companion for life.
Mm.
This one is called Stop Calling Me a Pregnant Woman, page 92. My master once entered a phase that whenever I would see him, he would say, Hafez, how did you become a pregnant woman? And I would reply, dear Attar, you must be speaking the truth, but all of what you say is a mystery to me. Many months passed by in his blessed company, but one day I lost my patience upon hearing that odd refrain and blurted out, stop calling me a pregnant woman. And Attar replied, someday, my sweet Hafez, all the nonsense in your brain will dry up like a stagnant pool of water beneath the sun. Though, if you want to know the truth, I can so clearly see that God has made love with you and the whole universe is germinating inside your belly. And wonderful words such enlightening words will take birth from you and be cradled against thousands of hearts. I know, right? So good.
So Attar was Hafez's master, right?
It was his master, and you know, it is a tradition in Sufism, which of course Hafez and Rumi were both Sufis. Is a tradition in Sufism to really, you know, have a lineage. You have a master that is your connection, and it is believed that all of Hafez's poems were written to Attar. They were written on some level for his master, all of them. And I think Farishte mentioned that some of Hafez's poems were so irreverent that they were pulled out of circulation by the more conservative fundamentalist Islamic people of his area, and that they've recently been published, and she has a copy of that book, and that's what she was translating from. And I, of course, wanted to hear the poems that had been pulled. It's believed that there were around 500 poems that remain from Hafez. We know that he wrote many more, but many of them were destroyed, probably when he was forced to live in the woods for a period of time when a conservative regime took over his lovely little town of Shiraz, which to this day is still a famous town and considered a town of poets and gardens, and where Hafez is buried. I think we looked at some images of his tomb that had fallen into disrepair. And Mir Baba was so interested in making Hafez's tomb a place of inspiration and pilgrimage that he set up a perpetual trust so that Hafez's tomb would be cared for. And there are now roses there, and it's absolutely kind of beautiful with fountains. It really is a pilgrimage site now, thanks to Mir Baba. So this one is called What Do White Birds Say? It's on page 97. The earth has disappeared beneath my feet. It fled from all my ecstasy. Now, like a singing air creature, I feel the rose keep opening. My heart turned to effulgent wings. When has love not given one freedom? When has adoration not made one free? A woman, broken in tears and sweat, stands in a field watching the sun and me trade jokes. But never would Hafez laugh at your blessed labor of finding peace. What do the dancing white birds say, looking down upon burnt meadows? They would say, all that you think is rain is not. Because behind the veil, Hafez and angels sometimes weep. Most eyes are rarely glad, and your divine beauty is still too frightened to unfurl its 1,000 swaying arms. The earth had disappeared beneath my feet. Illusion fled from all my ecstasy. Now, like a radiant sky creature, God keeps opening. God keeps opening inside of me.
Could you read that one again?
Yes.
Thank you.
What do the white birds say? The earth disappeared beneath my feet last night. It fled from all my ecstasy. Now, like a singing air creature, I feel the rose keep opening. My heart turned to effulgent wings. When has love not given freedom? When has adoration not made one free? A woman, broken in tears and sweat, stands in a field watching the sun and me trade jokes. But never would Hafez laugh at your blessed labor of finding peace. What do the dancing whitebirds say, looking down upon burnt meadows? All that you think is rain is not. Behind the veil, Hafez and angels sometimes weep, because eyes are rarely glad, and your divine beauty is still too frightened to unfurl its 1,000 swaying arms. The earth disappeared beneath my feet. Illusion fled from all my ecstasy. Now, like a radiant sky creature, God keeps opening. God keeps opening inside of me.
Wow. That's a wow.
That's a wow, right?
Wow.
So I actually thought you might enjoy looking at some images of wonderful Islamic tiles and ceilings. And so I couldn't find a long slideshow, but I could find a couple of small slideshows that show that. And so you might just like to close your eyes or look somewhere else. But if you would like to, this first one only lasts about 2.5 minutes, but it's a slideshow of Turkish tile work and Turkish mosque ceilings, which I think are just some of the most exquisite architecture on the planet. And so I'm going to run it for this next 2.5 minutes if you would like to look at it while you are listening to poetry. And then I would have to do this. Mm-hmm. 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 Where's that little button that says, oh, there it is. Share screen. This one is called The Angels Know You Well. You have fathered a child with me. You had your night of fun. If you no longer want the love my beautiful body can yield, at least take care of that holy infant my heart has become. God, you sired an heir with me when you gave birth to my soul. I thought of complaining to all the angels last night about your treatment of this homeless child, but then I remembered they too have a long list of love complaints because they all know you so well. Oh, I forgot this one is page 113. It's called Rewards for Clear Thinking. Think about this for a second. God, having infinite knowledge, not only knew your every thought and action that your life would ever experience, even before you were born, but he also, being the divine creator, has etched every moment of your existence with his own hand. He has done it with the precision and care no artist ever could. Think about this for a moment. I have never heard a bird or the sun ever say to God, I'm sorry. There seems to be a great reward for clear thinking. All existence is a pawn in the friend's hand. Look, one gets wings and gifts to the world, music each morning. One turns into such an extraordinary light, he actually becomes a sustainer of a whole planet. One makes 1,000 moons go mad with love and blush all night. When one can surrender the illusion of free will and still live for the benefit of others, the highest of moral codes. Was that good? Did you enjoy seeing Islamic images while you were listening to poetry, or was it distracting? Yes. Yes. 2,
Yeah.
3, yes, 4 yeses. Okay, good. We'll do it again.
No, it was a little distracting in that my ears apparently are distracted by visual input.
No, I understand. That's why I was asking. I totally understand.
Such a visual person, so it's
I
my
totally
own
understand.
problem. It's
yeah, no,
my own.
I think for you, Elaine, since you and I are both visually oriented, I think in my case, if I was sitting in y'all's place, I would probably shut my eyes so that I would not be distracted, because I would be distracted. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Wasn't that a great poem? That was page 113.
I especially like those last couple lines. When one can surrender the illusion, the crutch of free will, those still live for the benefit of others, the highest of moral codes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so Baba, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It is so Baba. I was thinking about this yesterday, that, you know, when I interviewed Native American elders for my museum exhibit about Native people, one elder after another told me that they had no one to pass their medicine bundles on to, that people were not, you know, going through the discipline and the commitment to really learn the medicine of their people. Because it's a serious commitment to do that. You really have to, you get calls in the middle of the night from someone who's freaking out, or, you know, your life is not your own anymore, basically, when you become a medicine person. And I was thinking about that yesterday, how even those of us who were just poets or artists, you know, we're not Frank Fool's Crow, that it really takes a commitment to do that. And that it takes a lot of sacrifice to do it, and a lot of courage to do it. So yeah, I really relate to this poem. I'm recording my next CD September 14th, and it's amazing how much fear I've had come up about it. Crazy, ridiculous. This one's called Stop Being So Religious, page 119. What do sad people have in common? It seems they've all built a shrine to the past and often go there and do a strange wail and worship. What is the beginning of happiness? It is stop being so religious like that. Short and sweet. Gotta really just hand it to him. That took some doing. When I first met Daniel, I talked to him on the phone before I actually got to meet him, and he recited this poem to me, which was so much fun. It's called It Felt Love, and it's page 121. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. I know, right? So good. This one's called Friends Do Things Like This, page 120. Friends do things like this. Tell which mat their house key is hidden under. Hafez, jump over, cut right through all the small talk today. Look beneath the right-hand corner of that Kierman behind the barn, where my sweet dog is usually sleeping. Don't worry, she won't bite. For you would not believe the extraordinary view of God from my bedroom window.
Love that.
I know, me too. This one only lasts for about a minute, but it's some more slideshow. And, oh wait, there's a chat here. Blink, you feeling me? Dun, dun. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 I know, right? So good.
It's the Hagia Sophia, right?
Yes, it is. It's Hagia Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
Want to go there so badly. So this one is one of the poems that I have on my CD, which I love. One of my favorite Hafez poems. The moon starts singing when everyone is asleep, and the planets throw a bright robe around their shoulders and whirl up close to her side. Once I asked the moon, why do you and your sweet friends not perform so romantically like that to a larger crowd? And the whole sky chorus resounded, the admission price to hear the lofty minstrels speak of love is affordable only to those who have not exhausted themselves all day dividing God and thus need to rest. The thrilled tavern fiddlers perched on their roofs do not wish their notes to intrude upon the ears of an accountant who with a sharp pencil is keeping score of every word someone in their great sorrow or sad anger may have once said to you. Listen, Hafez knows the sun will be your best man and whistle when you have found the courage to marry forgiveness, when you have found the courage to marry love. Oh, there's more people on here than I realized. Hello, Elizabeth Weiss. Nice to have you here. New person. I don't know the page that's on because I just did that one by memory.
So the images that we were just seeing while you were reading that is his tomb site? Or
no. I haven't been able to find a slideshow of his tomb. I've only been able to find photographs of it. Although, believe it or not, Rick Steves actually went there and did a very short, like 20-second clip of his tomb. But it's worth Googling images of Hafez's tomb. They are fantastic.
Yeah.
And that was Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, Turkey. And it's really it's like, I believe it's been decommissioned, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's being operated as a mosque. It's more of a museum, but it's the most famous mosque in all of Turkey. And it's stunning, just completely stunning. I've never been there, but everybody I know who goes there raves about it. So
it's amazing architecturally, if nothing else. It's just a phenomenon.
Yes.
I have a Hafez and a Rumi poem tattooed on me, and that's such an honor to see. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh wow, yeah, you're welcome. Wow, you're the first person I've ever met who's had a Hafez poem tattooed on you. Is it a short one?
Yeah, it is. You know, many people have Rumi, I think, tattooed on them. I think that's more popular. Yeah, I have May the gratitude in my heart kiss all the universe tattooed on my arm. Yeah, and then I have you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens from Rumi on my back.
Wow, you're a living poem.
Awesome.
I was at my bank yesterday. Banks are not my favorite places to be, but this bank bent over backwards. I couldn't believe how kind they were being to me. I was genuinely stunned. So I had to go into the bank because someone went into my mailbox and stole my checks and my credit cards. And so I had to cancel everything.
What?
So there I am with the bank manager thinking to myself, wow, something happened to this bank recently because these people never used to be like this. They're now like really nice. And I was looking at the bank manager who was just this typical Asheville woman, nothing out of the ordinary. And she had the word love tattooed on her wrist with wings. And I thought, that explains why this branch has suddenly become so great. This woman is so committed to that word. She has it tattooed on her wrist. It's quite great. Great moment in the bank. You don't have a lot of great moments in banks, so, you know. celebrate them when they happen.
Yeah.
Right. So I had just, let's see, I have just one more quick slideshow for you. This one's actually 5 minutes, and some of it is about the architecture, and some of it he actually pulls out a compass and a ruler and starts making some things. I studied sacred geometry when I was in Europe and changed my life. So this is a great video by a man named Eric Brugge, if you ever want to study this for a little bit.
Islamic culture.
Wait, hang on, blink. You'd think I'd have gotten the hang of this by now. So here's another poem that I did not, it's page 162. It's called Counting Moles. Lovers don't tell all their secrets. They might count each other's moles that reside in the shy regions, then keep that tally strictly to themselves. God and I have signed a contract to be even more intimate than that, though a clause mentions something about not drawing detailed maps to all his beautiful laughing moles. This one's page 192. Turn left 1,000 feet from here. What I really want to give you, I can't. Yet, all day long, I try painting maps on the sky with bright, tender sounds that say, turn left 1,000 feet from here, just past that next hill. Then make a sharp right as soon as you see that big rock that looks like an egg. There, you will see a decent tavern. I am like a wise friend. If you come close to me, I will write down the address of the woman who will ravish you the most. Hafez never wants to offend. So in anything I say, you can always freely switch the gender. Come close to me. I will whisper in your ear a secret about the one who has made us all fall in love. I'm going to just do some falls from here and see what happens. This one is called Against My Own Hand, page 45. You are a shy, divine deer that I cannot cease tracking. But only once of late did I get so close to see my own face and heart reflected in your wondrous, soft eyes. Only once of late, beloved, when I thought that I had you at last cornered, did Hafez come to know the sublime beauty of God's body against my own hand. This one's page 39, Your Mother and My Mother. Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions. For your mother and my mother were friends. I know the innkeeper in this part of the universe. Get some rest tonight. Come to my verse again tomorrow. We'll go speak to the friend together. I should not make any promises right now, but I know if you pray somewhere in this world, something good will happen. God wants to see more love and playfulness in your eyes, for that is your greatest witness to him. Your soul and my soul once sat together in the beloved's womb. Your heart and my heart are very old friends. I know, lovely, right? This is page 28. We have not come to take prisoners. We have not come here to take prisoners, but to surrender ever more deeply to freedom and joy. We have not come into this exquisite world to hold ourselves hostage from love. Run, my dear. Run from anything that may not strengthen your precious budding wings. Run like hell, my dear, from anyone likely to put a sharp knife into the sacred, tender vision of your beautiful heart. We have a duty to befriend those aspects of obedience that stand outside our house and shout to our reason, please, please come out and play. For we have not come here to take prisoners or to confine our wondrous spirits, but to experience ever and ever more deeply our divine courage, freedom, and light. So we talked about how Hafez came to be such a great poet last time when Fairstay was here. And that story is so great. And the short version of it is always worth retelling, that Hafez fell in love with a young, beautiful girl and knew he could not have her love. And so he went into a 40-day fasting period, which interestingly enough, I just found out Rumi also did this. Rumi did this 3 times, actually, when he was a young man. And the tradition in Sufism is that if you go into this circle, it's actually drawn into the ground, and you have a small amount of food and a small amount of water to last you for 40 days and someone with you. If you can manage to stay in that circle in prayer for those 40 days and not leave, the tradition in Sufism is that your prayer will be answered. And so Hafez managed to do this very arduous task, and the angel Gabriel came to him and said, "We have heard your request and we are here to grant it." And Hafez in that moment realized it was not the love of a woman that he wanted, but it was to know the love of God. And he asked for that. And the angel said, this will be given to you. So I love the way we think we want one thing, but then we find another. But somehow that thing that we think we want leads us to the other thing. It's all part of the unfolding of taking us closer to God and to the divine and to sacred. So I'm so glad that Hafez was given that gift and that he shares it with us. I just feel like we're so fortunate. I know Rumi is much more famous in the United States than Hafez is, but around in the Middle East, Hafez is absolutely considered a superior poet to Rumi, is much more well-known and much more highly revered. So I think that it's partly because Daniel does not go out and do readings, and Coleman Barks has been doing those for quite a bit and has a much bigger body of work that he's pulled from. So I'll just say that putting your work out there has great merit if you've got something to share. So Hafez is my heart. Yes, that is true. Mine too. Well, we have 5 more minutes, so I will do a fall and see where it takes us. Everyone knows Hafez was Baba's favorite poet. And I think everyone knows his story, but just in case you don't, Mir Baba was very unhappy with the translations into English of Hafez, and he said to Erich, "Bring me the book of Wilberforce Clark's translations of Hafez." And it took several days for Erich to find them, and Mir Baba said to him, "Do not come back until you have found them." So you imagine getting that directive? So Erich frantically tried to find a copy
before the internet.
What? Right.
Before Google.
Right. I'm sure he had to get on his bicycle and ride to somebody's house. And so finally, after several days, he finds a worm-eaten, dust-covered copy, and he takes it to Baba, and Baba blows on the book, and he says out loud, or through translation, "I want there to be new life in the translations of Hafez." And Daniel Ladinsky heard that story from Erich on his daily walks with Erich, and that is how he came to be connected to Hafez. He said to Erich, "I will be the Hafez translator." And Erich says, "You can't translate Hafez, you don't speak Farsi." And Daniel Ladinsky said, "Well, I'll do it." And so he did. I think he was about 18 years old when he heard this story. So he's really dedicated the better part of his life to doing this work. I'm so grateful. I know we are all so grateful that he's done it. Any comments, by the way? Any thoughts, comments? So I did another fall, and this one is called The Beautiful Love Games, page 184. Young lovers wisely say, let's try, I can't read that. It's a little too risque. I'm just gonna go right past that. This one's called The Millstone's Talents. It's page 109. To the heart's deepest sensibilities, only the God who created every God dares to sing. In the tavern where the friend performs, I am amazed, for there are often vacant seats at night, and the old chairs miss their free dusting by big warm rear ends. The husk on the grain needs the millstone's talents before the royal eye's intelligence can cure life. And one can see that God is everywhere and whirling. To your deepest sensibility, my beloved, has asked Hafez to sing with all of my millstone's talents.
I recently fall.
Yeah, that was a fall.
Yeah.
I recently discovered that there's a Sufi tradition that when there's a gathering, they're called mafels, when there's a gathering in someone's house or in a group of small people to share poetry, sacred poetry, that they would put a rose on top of the mantle of the door. So when we got together last week, I took rose petals. I couldn't reach my door mantle. So I took rose petals and I strewed them at my door in honor of that tradition.
That's great. That was a rose that you just held up?
Oh yes, it's several pale pink roses actually.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes, it's beautiful.